How bothered are you, the viewer, about there isn't anything that you could really say you know? Because when you look at things that you think you know, well, what you think you know about them are just a conglomerate of concepts and very, very loosely fitting. For instance, I mean, if we just say like the phones that we're using, what do you know about phones? I would think, there's a fraction of people really that know, let's say 90% of how they're constructed and how they work. Because everything's compartmentalised these days, isn't it? Have you seen how these microchips are made in factories? They have these massive factories with these machines that look like they come from a parallel dimension. They're so sophisticated, every single thing is roboticized, and they're dealing with chips which literally are the size of grains of sand. And they've got some technology which can produce the circuits, and then they go through 100 varying processes of this and that and something else and this, that and the other, and they go from one of these massive machines to the next machine to the next machine. It's astounding, absolutely bewildering. Who knows about this stuff? Who knows how phones work? Who even knows how our bodies work? We just go through life without knowing anything, just thinking that there's blood pumping through our veins, and that's the heart, and we've got a brain, and that's about it. And then we don't really know anything about the body until something goes wrong with it, and we have to have attention. And even then we don't know nothing about it. We just go, just fix whatever's fucking gone wrong, can you? So, in recent times, right, we've had this Mandela effect where things have changed. And one of the things that changed in the Mandela effect was that the heart always used to be on the left-hand side. And whenever you see anybody put the hand on the heart, they put the right hand over on the left breast. They don't go like this. That just doesn't look right. From what we've been told, what we've been indoctrinated into, the heart was always on the left, wasn't it? And even when we have these kids' games where you've got to do the operation, you've got these pincers to pick the bones out, and then if you touch the edge, you go bzz, like that. Well, the heart was on the left, it wasn't in the middle. But now, since the Mandela effect, the heart's always in the middle. When you look in the books or when you look on YouTube or anything like that, it's in the middle. Why is it that we were always told that it was on the left? And even when Elon Musk did his Nazi salute, right, he goes like this, he slaps the left side of his chest and then he puts his arm out. Now, of course, what he was saying was, he's just saying, my heart goes out to you, but it was like this. And so it's not going to be long before the leftists are jumping on the bandwagon, he's a Nazi. But his heart was on the left, and I don't know. I don't even know whether you can get any old movies which depict this. I swear on my heart, and whoever it is, put the right hand on the left breast. But these days, that isn't the case. So we go, okay then, right, the heart's in the middle then now. But then you see, something I've been speaking about in recent times is that this fallacy of love emanating from the heart. And if we follow back through history, then on some occasions it even goes back to Aristotelian times, Platonic times, with these great philosophers stating that emotions come from the heart, because when we are emotional, whether we're angry, joyous, sad or terrified, the heart is beating in a certain way. Why? Because the heart is pumping the blood around, getting ready for the fight or flight. But years ago we didn't know about the fight or flight hormones. which get the body prepared for the fight or flight. They knew that by the time you was angry or this, that and the other, then the heart would be doing this and the other. But they were speculating that the heart was doing it. That's why the heart was beating, because it was doing it. It was bringing about all these emotions. But these days we know that isn't the case. And yet, I was watching something only last night, and it was just saying things like, you know, I feel so much sorrow in my heart, and these sort of things. And it's kind of like, I wonder if we're ever going to get over that, or whether that's it now, stuck forever with a human being, because it's been about on a progressive process for 2,000 years. And then I think it was in like was it the 3rd century or the 13th century? I can't be, lots of times, because I've read lots of stuff on Google, and I think in about 300 AD there was something talking about the emotions. And then most certainly in the 1300s, I think it was Saint Valentine, he was you know, drawing hearts and sending those to lovers and this, that and the other. But he didn't originate that. He was originated before. Why? Because, well, when we look at nature, people, there are many, many leaves and flower petals which are in the shape of a heart. And so if you give roses to a girl, let's say red roses, pink roses, well, you know, or different sorts of flowers, well, on some of these flowers, you're going to discover that the petals are in a heart shape. And so if you decide to get a few of these petals and press them between a letter, and you send your love via the symbolism of the rose, well, that heart shape is going to start to catch on, isn't it? It's going to become a meme, and that's what it's become. It's become a meme, and it's, you know, it seems like it's one that we're never going to get over. But you know, apparently there's no such thing as emotions coming from the heart. But it's just that that's where we feel the result of the emotions, in the heart. We don't feel the result of the firings of the brain and the chemicals, you know, getting pumped around the body. We don't feel that, but we feel the heart. And so everybody speaks of that, and love coming from the heart, and your emotions coming from the heart, and this, that, and the other, when it's a complete fallacy. So the question I'm asking today, people, is like, you know, following on from what I'm always asking. Here he is again. There he is again. There he is. That's my Bertie. That's my boy. He's my boy. He wants a tickle. He wants a tickle. Go on him. Yeah, yeah. I've had to go and wash my coat, you know. You bugger. I had to go and wash my coat, didn't I? Hey. Go on and enjoy yourself, mate.
Come on then, Cyril.
Oh, it's Cyril. I was calling him Bertie all the time.
No,
I knew it was one of those old school names.
Yeah, Cyril.
Cyril.
The squirrel.
Well, what are you going to do? You're going to have to bath him when you get back.
I've got a cloth that I can get most of it off with.
Well, what about a bath? He looks like he needs a good soak.
It'll come off, it really will.
Really?
Then he'll go in his crate and it'll all just fall off in his crate. He'll just cuddle up with his toys and go sleep for about an hour.
Right.
At which point I'd do my Uber and my housework.
Yeah. Look at a little chap. Hey, look at him. Hey. I tell you what, one day I reckon he wants to come with a walk with me. Don't you?
Do you know, he'd go, he wouldn't come back.
Wouldn't he not?
Not yet.
I'll take him for a proper adventure in the woods.
He's only 16 weeks, so we'll get in there. We'll get there.
All right, see you later. Cyril, my new mate. All the dogs know me on this track, and they just pay attention to me, and they're curious about me. And if I'm not singing or whistling or something, then they're concerned about the beard. Often, you know, initially the dogs will be worried about, what's this fucking beard thing going on? Is it a monster? But give them a bit of love, and then they give them a bit of affection. You see, look, we're so conditioned into this. Give them a bit of love. What are you doing? What is this love? And I'm always speaking about it, aren't I? When we look deeply into the roots of all these things, you see that this concept of love, it derived from poetry and, you know, people waxing lyrical about their feelings for loved ones and this, that and the other. But the fact of it is, people, there's no such thing as love. And, you know, when I'm reading all of these varying books from Christianity and religions and things like that, particularly Christianity, all speaking of this love and Jesus' undying love for everybody. And when you look into what Jesus is, it's kind of like, oh fucking hell, Jesus is just a fucking idea. So the love is an idea. And in my book, you know, I'm questioning and I'm evaluating what is consciousness, what is intuition, what is faith, what is love, what are all these things. They're absolutely indefinable. Why are they so indefinable? Because they don't actually exist. Nothing actually exists. Why? Because they're just concepts, and concepts are just fabricated out of our fiction and fantasies. That's all this world is, just concepts, people. Concepts of love coming from the heart, concepts of love in general, concepts of hate, concepts of evil, concepts of joy, concepts. What is actually happening? Well, in physiological terms, there's some stuff going on inside this body. And under certain circumstances, we can have very, very paranormal experiences. And of course, if we take certain substances, then we'll enter into crazy other worlds. And when we've done those things, people, we have to go, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is it? There is a whole myriad of conscious states that we can enter into, depending on what circumstances our body's in, what foods and drinks we take, and what substances we ingest, all that different sorts of stuff. And they're all equally as bewildering as the everyday one. So one of the guys in the gym, he works there, and he works behind the computer, and I don't know, he's less than 30, and if I've not seen him 1,000 times walk up and down that path and just staring, he's like that. He's got his earbuds in all the time, and he's just like, just plodding along. And if I'm walking past him in the corridor, he'll just stare into nothingness. He won't even have the courtesy just to go, how you doing, all right, morning. I've never ever seen him speak with anybody. He's got his earphones in constantly unless he's on the computer, and he just sits there staring at the computer like this. And I thought, well, you know, he just doesn't like the way I look. You know, some people can think like, oh, I'm not talking to him, he thinks he's great, all them muscles, and he's a weirdo, and whatever, you know, people get perceptions, don't they? So I thought I would broach him on this, and so walking down the corridor, going towards the changing room, he's coming, and exactly the same, only he's not got his earbuds in because he's at work, and he's just like walking in this robotic sort of stomping way, looking straight ahead like that. Or it's usually just down at the floor a few feet ahead of him. And I said to him, how is it that you always look so sad? He went, I'm not sad, I'm just tired and I need a coffee. And then this morning I seen him in the gym again. He's working out this time with his earbuds in, and he never went, alright, you know, no. And so it's kind of like some people, they live in this very, very closed world, don't they? They put the earbuds in because that's a message to anybody that they don't want to talk. And even this muscle guy I used to speak to, he always used to be wearing his earbuds in. But when you talk to him, hi, you all right? And it'd be all that. But you know, deep down, he didn't want to talk to anybody. But he would if he was confronted. So you see that anyone's got their earbuds in and they're just staring at the phone, and they'll never ever get eye contact with anybody. When I'm working out in the gym, I'm walking around, between sets, and I'm just looking at everybody, of course. I'm looking what they do and whether they get eye contact and this, that and the other, and invariably nobody will look at you. And 90% have got their earbuds in and they're looking into the phone between sets. As soon as they finish the set, then they're looking straight into the phone. And I'm like, what sort of world do these people live in? They notice nothing of the abstract world, absolutely nothing. They're all in their heads and in their phones. And you know, I could reasonably have thought, oh, this guy just doesn't like the look of me and this, that and the other. And he probably doesn't like the look of me, but I think it's more like that they're deeply troubled and insular and anxious and just uninspired, dull, automaton. How many people actually walk with their chin up and greet everybody and always a bit chatty and open? How many people are open these days? Walk down the city in the street and you'll never see anybody give you eye contact. They wouldn't, they're terrified, too terrified to do that. And you know what it's like, commuting on a train, people, good God, isn't it? It's like some fuckers died. Some fuckers died. Every single train that ever traipses up and down any country on the planet, particularly in the Western world, it's like there's the energy of lingering dead. When people just get on without saying anything, they don't talk at all, they get off without saying anything, nobody looks at each other. And if you go to sit down next to someone and they've put their laptop or bag on that chair, it's kind of like, oh, I'll put this here so people don't come and sit next to me. There's other chairs, but you know, if you go to sit down there, then they'll just, you know, scurry up all of their stuff and they won't even look at you and they won't say anything or anything like that, and it's kind of like, wow. These, I call them catatonics because they really are locked in they are. So what am I saying here, people? I'm speaking about you know, the misconceptions of life and what we think we know, and the illusion and delusion of it. And you can say to me, well, when are you going to sing another song, Aaron? Well, I can't sing another fucking song because it's so apparent to me, and with each passing day it becomes more and more apparent that there is in actual fact nothing which is what anyone could call real here in this dimension, other than the fact that there's consciousness having a dream. And more people are saying it these days, and so I watch videos all the time of more and more people saying more and more outlandish stuff, convinced that this is a simulation, convinced that we're not all human, you know, convinced that it's a dream and there's no physical reality, and the world is going to be becoming more and more fantastic. And when, speaking about these microchips being built, when you've got these absolutely massive warehouses, they are miles long, people, and they've barely got a single person in them. Everything is just beautifully, it's like you can even sense the aliveness of the AI. They know exactly what they're doing, and it's kind of like it's just biding its time. They need humans for you know, a few little things to mine the minerals and you know, to do all that different sorts of stuff, but when it comes down to the technical stuff, they do it on their own because human beings can't do it. And so as soon as they then can create these chips, then build them into big diggers and trucks and all that, then they won't need the human beings. They'll be able to mine all the resources, minerals and everything themselves, or itself. Yeah, the world is becoming a very, very bizarre place. The cosmos, the dream, the simulation. You know when we say the world, what's the world? The world, well, it means this planet. Also, we've got the world and the planet. Well, what's the difference between the two? They mean the same thing, don't they? You know, our home in the cosmos. And you just look at these semantics just jumping around all the time and morphing in and out of meaning. And the only way anybody could really continue to have an existence here is if they buy into all of the concepts and don't question them. Don't question things like I'm questioning all the time, because if you do, then you'll end up like me, not believing in a single thing. And when we are engaging with people, look at all the variances of people. And when you are psychoanalytically inclined, philosophically inclined, spiritually inclined, and all these things, you watch people and you listen to them and you go, wow, they are completely automated, absolutely automated through and through. I met for the first time this woman who's the mother of my daughter's fiance, and my daughter's been telling me about her. She's a proper tool, this woman, and the major thing is that she's absolutely incessantly talking about herself. Never ever would talk about anything else. It always has got to revert back to I, me, mine. And somebody could be on the deathbed and then she'd say, oh, I had a dream last night that I was dying, and oh, I did this and I did that and I did that, and then the person would go, oh, and this bitch wouldn't even notice. Absolutely incredible. For people that can think outside of the box and engage in other people's thoughts and things like that, it's phenomenal. How is that possible? Completely and utterly programmed. And all she's ever talking about is what she has gathered up along her very, very narrow journey through life. And it was even like my daughter, when I went round there on her birthday, she went out to hang the washing, and the mother-in-law looked out of the window. Oh, she's doing that wrong. You're supposed to hang them by the corners. Look, she's doing that wrong, she said to her old man. And my daughter's fiance said she's all right, she knows what she's doing. There's more ways to skin a cat, And so, you've got to hang everything by the corners. And I'm like, so did her mother tell her that? Probably. Her mother, used to hang stuff by the corners, and that was the only way you could ever do it. You can't just fold them over the line. You can't hang them by the centre. You can't do nothing. You just got to hang things by the corners. And that's her program, and that's how her life has been, and she'll die like that. Without ever considering that there is more ways to skin a cat, And so when we start looking at, people thinking that we're all the same, and then we discover that some people don't have an internal monologue, they don't even have, they don't have an internal dialogue, they don't even have an internal monologue. You say to yourself, well, how do they think? Well, it seems that their thinking isn't thinking, it's coming from the program, and the program keeps feeding up things from the unconscious as to what to do. Like this mother-in-law, you fold all the clothes on the washing line or with the corners, and that's it. So she was programmed that, probably as a child, and that's it. And so then she's got something to say about hanging washing out, but it's very, very limited. And then she goes on to something else about this and something else about that, and she just doesn't ever stop. She's one of these women that don't ever fucking stop. What she don't know ain't worth fucking knowing, and yet she knows fuck all. And so we look at what we are thinking that we know, and we think we know about this, that and the other, and every single thing that you think you know, if you really look into it and question yourself in the finest of details, what do you really know, then you will discover that you don't know anything. And if you just look around you and you go, well, over there's a wood. Well, what's a wood? Oh, it's a conglomerate of trees. What are trees? Oh, there's some sort of plant. What's a plant? It's like, I suppose it's an energy form, really. and generally created out of what we'd call wood and foliage. What's wood and foliage are, and then we get down into the micro level, and we get into the chemistry, the biology, and the physics, and all this sort of stuff that we know nothing about. And so it's kind of like, well, what do we know about a tree? What do I know about this tree here? I know fucking nothing about this tree. I know absolutely nothing about this tree. I know what the actual name of it is, supposedly the concept, and I can say things like, well, it's hard, and it's a little bit smooth, and it's a little bit rough, and it's so big, and this. I can talk about all those sort of things, which are very, very, very general. But what do I know about that tree? Nothing at all. But what do I feel about these trees? As soon as I stop talking, I'm feeling the trees. I'm feeling the stillness, the gentle animation. I'm feeling the spirit. I'm feeling the spirit. Trees have spirit, people. Everything has spirit. Everywhere you go, everything has spirit. But trees possess more spirit, a very discernible spirit. And the older a tree is and the bigger a tree is, the more spirit it has, and the more attention it commands. Very, very commanding, huge trees, aren't they? With their stateliness and their sturdiness, and some of them been around for hundreds or thousands of years. What have they seen? What have they learned? And I'm telling you now, people, they know things. On one occasion, I saw an oak tree, and this oak tree was growing up only 5 or 6 feet away from the wall of a house, and it was a gable-ended house, so it had no windows in it, and the oak tree looked to be about maybe about 70 years old or something like that. It was about twice the size as one of these. And what I'd noticed is that when the trunk was growing up, all the branches were facing in the other direction. Not a single branch tried to come out where the wall was, because it knew that it couldn't grow there. So it sent every single one of its branches in the opposite direction. And so when I looked at that, I thought, wow, that tree is really lopsided. What the fuck's gone on there? And then I realised, well, it must have known that there's no future for it to send out its branches, because then they're going to be crumpling and buckling and bending, and then having to go up the side of the wall and you enter into all levels of contortion and everything. And so I asked myself, well, how did the tree know that? How did the tree know that? Then on another occasion, I saw there was a tree that was felled, and this tree was felled, looking at it rationally, because it was on an embankment in a public area. Now the embankment was pretty steep. It was like the side of a railway embankment, coming down, I don't know, like 45 degrees or something. And this tree had a trunk on it with a girth about 1 metre, and so it was a decent sized tree, and this tree was growing on the embankment. And what had happened to this tree over the years, as it grew bigger and bigger and bigger and got heavier and heavier and heavier, obviously if it was to grow out perpendicular from the ground, it would have been out of balance and it would have fallen over. So what it had to do is it had to grow out like this, and it bent itself back. Now what I could see from the rings, I could see that from the rings the growth, and what it had actually done, it had restricted the amount of growth on this side of the embankment. The embankment's going down there, so it restricted the amount of growth here, and then it put out much more growth down there. And what it was doing, it was offsetting the balance, so it was giving it more structure to going down like that, and then the tree was bending up like this, you see, because because if it just grew in its regular thickness, right from the centre, going out in concentric circles, then it would have had the same thickness as growth rings in all directions, but it never. The rings were tiny, literally like this, and there's it's about 150 years old, this tree, and so the trunk coming out from the centre. This was the curious thing about it, people, because coming out from the centre, there was only literally, I don't know, probably about 6 or 8 inches, but from the centre ring, the growth in the other direction was exponentially massive, because it had pushed its weight out there to sturdy itself in the ground and then lean back on that. It's kind of like if you're putting your foot out like that on the ground. That's what it was doing, and so therefore all the weight was going down there on that to prevent it from going forward, and there's hardly anything on the back foot. And so my back foot now, if you look at my back foot, it's like that. And so, I don't have to put too much, because I'm not going backwards, I'm going forwards. My weight's going to go forwards. So I knew that tree, for its whole life, had a discernment of how it needed to grow and where its weight distribution needed to be. Now, if you don't think that is true, can you come up with another feasible, logical explanation as to why that was the case? Over 150 years, very little growth at the back, but a massive amount in front to counterbalance. So people, when we look closer at these sort of things like this, we have our ignorance blown wide open, and we can see that all around us there is a level of genius that we will never even come close to comprehending. And the level of genius, when I'm watching little spiders spin their webs, and I'm thinking to myself, how in God's name did they discern how to tie the threads? Because spiders need at least 5 points to tag their webs. And so I've seen spiders span webs, let's say within 8 feet, and they've attached a fibre to the top of a tall wheelie bin, then they've attached another one to the top of a fence post, then they've attached another one to the fucking garage wall over there, and then they go down to the ground, and I'm like, for God's sake, how did they do that? And then, look, if the wind's blowing like it is today, and always the wind is going to be blowing, and if the wind's not blowing, some people can say, they just put their fibre out and then it sticks to something. No, because they've got to send it out like that, and the wind is going to blow it in any single direction. Can you imagine this flimsy, very, very light thread? It's just going to be blown all over the place, and it's going to be sticking to anything. It's not work like that. What these spiders have done, people, they've actually needed to have looked around, and they've needed to assess where they are going to be pinning their silk, and they've needed to go to walk to these places invariably. They've needed to walk up to the top of the wheelie bin and to stick a thread to it, and if the wind isn't blowing in the right direction, then they're going to have to walk back down the wheelie bin, tethering that thread, walk along the floor, then walk up the wall the other side, and then pull it in. They're going to have to do that, and I've seen spiders actually doing this sort of stuff on a smaller scale. You see, if you've got a spider and it walks up to the top here and it attaches a tether there, then it will drop back down on that, and then it will walk over to another point, and then it will tie it there, and it will put that tether in. So when we look then at how spiders do that, I've looked for quite a long time on the internet to see if anyone's speaking about this, and miraculously nobody is speaking about it, and it's absolutely phenomenal as to why that is. And so I've often wanted just to go out into a field in the springtime, because there's certain places I go where you've got, grasslands like this, or bracken. When I go to these national parks, you've got this bracken, and there's this variety of spider that likes this bracken. And I want to set up, a camera there, and I want to film, and I just really need to know how the fuck they do this stuff, because it's just blown my mind away. And when I look at it logically, it's kind of like, well, they need to have the similar sort of thinking and ability as a human being to be able to look around and go, right then, I'm going to build my fucking web here, I'm going to be needing that tree, I'm going to be needing that tree, I'm going to be needing that lamppost over there, and then what can I tell, oh, that fucking branch hanging over there, okay, right then, best go and tether my fucking silk to that over there, then walk over to that one, and then walk up, and then attach another fucking tether, then drop down on that tether, and then come back over. Oh, well, goodness me. The genius of this, people, is something incredible. But, we don't know anything, do we? We don't know anything, people. And when we look at what the human being is, and we've got cars going around the roads and planes up in the sky, and you may be thinking that, oh, human beings know how to do this and know how to do that. I don't think there's a single human being on the planet that knows how to do all that stuff. The thing about human beings, it's like ants and bees. We do things collectively, and we enter into certain energy fields of thought and consciousness. And it's kind of like, well, what do? We as humans, we sit around board tables and we go, we're going to need an engineer, we're going to need a mathematician, we're going to need a scientist, we're going to need someone that's, qualified in stress for metals and this and that. We're going to need a whole myriad of people. In actual fact, to build one Boeing 747, we're going to need 1 million people, coming from all over the world with all different sorts of technologies, even the technology how to stitch one of their fucking seats, which is robust and it doesn't feel uncomfortable and it doesn't come apart, and what thread to use, and 1 million things, people, 1 million things. And there's individuals concerned with all these things. It's all compartmentalized, and so that's how the world is, that's how government is, that's how it's always been, because no one person can know everything. And so because no one person can know everything, then we get these specialists, and that's why the world is like it is, with nobody knowing what other people are doing. The left hand is never knowing what the right hand is doing. And it's kind of like in governments, like with Elon Musk, with the Doge in America. He's discovering that the US government have been paying companies and so-called individuals trillions of dollars for years and years and years, when lots of the individuals have even been dead. And the company isn't providing that service anymore, and yet someone has just been writing checks because nobody's ever thought about it. No one like Elon Musk has gone in with a company with a whole array of very bright individuals that have gone, we need to look into this, because nobody's fucking looked into it. They've just continued. It's kind of like termites building their house. They're just built on top, and they've never considered very much about what's going on in the bottom regions. Now, I'm not saying that termites do that, because termites are very, very bright, but just using that as an illustration. You see, some of you probably don't know, well, many of you wouldn't know, but when you get termites building their homes out in the desert, and you see these huge big mounds, but the termite's home in actual fact is underneath that, and they can span some like 6 meters wide and 4 or 5 meters deep. And so what people have done, they have cut open the top of one of these termite mounds, and they've poured in molten aluminum. and the molten aluminum has travelled throughout the whole complex of the termite mound. And then what they do is they very, very carefully, archaeologically, chip away all of the soil, and they have excavations like 6 meters wide, and then what you've got left is like the roots of a tree, with little chambers here, there and everywhere, and these chambers is where they put their rotting vegetation, which heats up and keeps a certain ambience to the whole colony, and also provides foods, and there's a whole lot of intricacies going on within these termite mounds. And you ask yourself, well, what hierarchical system do they operate from? How does any individual know what to do, because they're all specialists in certain jobs? So what I'm saying is, people, it's exactly the same as human beings. They all do their certain specialist job, but they don't know anything about the other jobs going on. And I'm asking, well, what level of education do these people get? What level of governance? How do they know? It seems to me that they're born into what is known as morphic resonance. They're born into morphic resonance fields, and these fields are like Wi-Fi. And the ants, termites, bees, they tap into this Wi-Fi, and their signal is downloaded and gives them the instructions as to what to do every single hour of every single day. You see, if you're looking for another explanation, well, what is it? Where is it? And just to say, oh, that's evolution, that doesn't do it, does it? It's just like saying love comes from the heart. No, we have to investigate. Stop with this silly evolution thing, because there's never, ever, ever been an intermediary animal found, which is obviously the link between this species and that species. Never been found. And some of you, if you are really into all this stuff, you say, oh no, there was this fish, it's like a catfish, and we can see that it was the early sort of stage of a lizard. Well, with a very, very vivid imagination you can, but again, there's no real proof, and lots of people dispute that. So what do we know, people? What do we know? We find ourselves in this dimension, and we've created all these concepts for the sun in the sky, with clouds and meadows and weather and crows and cameras and dreadlocks and glasses and all these sort of things. We've created those. How have we created those? Out of our imagination. So what's actually going on here? It's like some intelligence. It's self-replicating. It's like, let's say, a growth in a petri dish. Let's say some mould in a petri dish. How it keeps replicating, and it's creating whatever it needs. What about when some animals you can cut them in half, like some worms? There's a variety of worms. You cut them in half and they grow back to their body, within a day or something. What about a lizard? You pull the tail off a lizard and it will grow another one back. This level of intelligence. And so this level of intelligence is within this thing, and it's so incomprehensible for us to get our heads around, because we've got very, very limited states of consciousness. And to be quite frank, people, it's an absolute miracle. And somehow the human being over all these years has learned a few things, and it can use technology to fly and to create computers and things like that. But I don't think that information is coming from the human being. I think it's coming from, like, the Wi-Fi. It's coming from the cosmos, and the cosmos is the intelligence and the brain. It's the mind, and from mind, the mind is melding and moulding and creating from the so-called matter energy that it's created. And well, it's mind-blowing, people. But what I can say is that when I'm standing here, away from all the noise, like I have done hundreds of times before, you'll recognise this space. But I go into a space. I go into the cosmic consciousness, the bliss, the dream, the stillness, the super pleasant feeling of the gentle warmth of the sun and the stillness of the air and the chirping and chattering and tweeting of the birds all around me. It's an incredible miracle. And I feel very DMT-like, because what DMT does for you, it makes you, it's kind of like, it's a sexual thing, it's an orgasmic thing. It puts you in the realm of an orgasm, and it's DMT is saucy, and it's spicy, and it's delicious. And very often when I'm on DMT, I'm licking my lips in a very tasty, sexual way. DMT just puts you in that beautiful, taunting, tantalizing, sexual ecstasy. And it's a very, very, very bizarre thing. And it feels very uncanny, because when you're in that, you know that that is what you are. And you know if you had more of that, you couldn't bear it. You couldn't bear that love. It's an overwhelming feeling of love when you just feel so delicious, so gorgeous. It really is bizarre. And so I use the word love because there's few other options. I could say, like I have done, gorgeous and delicious and orgasmic and all these things. But what are they? They're concepts to describe a feeling which is ineffable. It's ineffable, people. And so when these spiritual books speak about the love of Jesus, well, on one occasion when Jesus spoke to me and I saw Jesus in my fucking tapestry, and something went on where the cosmos fucking gave me this orgasm, this all over orgasm, and the voice was, if you want to know what unconditional love is, you have to come through me. And I'm like, why on earth did I get that message from that egregore when I don't believe in him, it, as a thing like that? Why on earth did I get that? And to this day now, I'm reading, religious book after religious book after religious book, and of course they're Christian books, and I don't know why. It's just that they come to me, and it's kind of like, oh, here we go again. I'm reading another 500-page fucking book on Christianity. Why? I don't believe in it. For instance, look, this way of mastery, it speaks about the love of God. And the God, obviously, is the God of the Old Testament. And I've read the Old Testament in its entirety, and I've studied it long and hard. And I've never ever come upon a single fucking phrase, line or paragraph in there which would indicate to me that character, Yahweh, is love. He is the epitome of the devil, if you ever saw it. The evil, the manipulation, the jealousy, the wrath, and all this coming from this thing that we're supposed to love. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about in these books? You're just trying to fucking gaslight us, telling us that Yahweh character is love and created the children and loves us and all this, and one day we're going to sit on his right hand side. What a bunch of complete and utter evil nonsense. You would have thought If these fucking fools are always talking about the love of Yahweh, you would have thought they would at least change what is fucking said in that book. So it sounds very benevolent and lovely. And then this God cherishes his children and really looks after them and never wants any harm to come to them, this, that and the other. But no, all throughout the whole Testament, all you've got is a very, very evil, hateful, destructive, devilish-like character, which is supposed to love his children, and yet smiting them and slaughtering them at the drop of a fucking hat when they're not begging for his forgiveness. I can't get involved in that love, people. I can't get involved in it. And so the whole Jesus thing, being the son of that character, ain't getting involved in it. Not getting involved in it. So I'm looking for the truth within me. And I know there's something beautiful and delicious and orgasmic and this and the other. And that comes from a chemical, to be fair, people. It comes from a very, very still peace of mind when you've been in beautiful meditations. I've been in meditations whereby I've just had tears streaming down my cheeks because I felt so incredibly beautiful. And you get almost identical the same feeling when you take DMT. And so what do we know about DMT? We know that it's very, very similar to serotonin, the chemical in our minds which create pleasure. And so as far as I'm concerned, there ain't no daddy in the fucking sky. There's no man or thing that created this. It's consciousness. And consciousness has created these bodies and the chemicals and everything. God is a chemical. That's what I've discovered after all these years, because I can find God when I take DMT. I can find it in an instant. Within a few seconds of inhaling it, that's God. The most blissful and wonderful feeling you could ever have. And when you look at the world, it's just for you. It's just pure love and it's just for you. Why is that? Because the ego's gone offline and your mind's been flushed with these beautiful neurotransmitters that just give you that. They give you that facet. And when these neurotransmitters are gone, then you get the other facet of hell, where people are depressed and they're down and they're suicidal and all that. And this is why people are prescribed these SSRIs. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so your serotonin doesn't get depleted, doesn't get gobbled up, and so therefore it's the serotonin that brings joy to life. And so you have a real huge flush of serotonin, then you go into levels of extreme, and that's these feelings of God, people. Like what these people who have prefrontal epilepsy, what they go into this, they feel as if they're Jesus and God and the world is fucking amazing and all that, because their ego has been eliminated momentarily, and they have these neurotransmitters. And so that's what I've learned. I'm not listening to anybody tell me how the world is. I'm looking and feeling and experiencing how my world is, because that's the only fucking world. We have our own worlds. There is no world out there, people. You have your own world. And even in this way of mastery, it's absolutely emphatic about that. We create our reality. There is nothing outside of our consciousness. And so, some of you will know from experience what I'm speaking about. Many of you won't. So, it's just what it is. So I'm going to go on a nature walk. In actual fact, I can start it now. Because to have a level of awareness, people, like this here, see this? You see these purple flowers? Purple blossom. I think this is an ash tree. And so they're going to be the catkins, which distribute the pollen. Now you can always tell ash trees because they've got these chunky, noduly twigs. They always face up, and before they burst into plumage like this, they have black pronounced buds on the end, like that, only blacker and more pronounced, like this here. You see, there's one's there, yeah. And then over here, amongst all the stinging nettles, we have this going on, and I'm just trying to discern what sort of a tree this is. With those groups of flowers like that. I can't discern at this moment in time what that is. It's not a sycamore or a maple, because the branches don't fork like those trees do. I think it's important, people, to be very, very present and to be in the now and to observe the world about you, to see what's going on in the varying stages of life and death and recycling. Now, I'm going to be walking down here to have a look at a few of the bits and bobs. So here we have an ash tree. You see that? Black. And at this stage, very, very smooth. Very smooth. But that changes when they mature. So these laurels here, these eventually will all be black berries, and they'll grow to be about that long, and these berries will be almost as big as marbles. But first they're going to flower, pollinate. So we're in the very early stages of spring. And to look around, it still looks very wintry, but there's the first signs of new growth coming through. And so, for me, the sun is high. The sun's high. It's over halfway up in the sky to its longest day. And so we had the vernal equinox, didn't we, on the 20th of March? And so now we're over that, and we're heading up towards Midsummer's Day with the solstice, the summer solstice. But there's a feeling within me that it's like the summer is here, only it hasn't made manifest. And at the same time, I have the looming feeling that it's going to be short-lived. It all seems so fleeting, doesn't it? Particularly in Britain, when we don't seem to have, endless days of sunshine. No sooner as we've had a few days or weeks sunshine, then the fall comes about and we start to see the sun start to slip down again. And you know, from the summer solstice, the longest day, that's a joyous day and a sad day for me. It's joyous because it's beautiful and it's long and we've got like 16 hours of daylight, whereas in the heart of the winter you only have 8 hours of daylight. So the days seem like doubly long, and very often I have well completed all that I would normally do in any given day during the winter time, and then I've got a whole day to do some more stuff. And so that's why I'm always out and about, foraging and everything like that, because I can only play guitar and sing for so many hours, I can only go to the gym for so many hours, I can only cycle for so many hours, I can only read for so many hours, and then it's still bright, the sun's still high in the sky, I go out and sunbathe for certain hours, and goodness me, there's still lots of time left to go and to be in the realm of cosmic God consciousness, and just to go out into the stillness and listen to all the wonderful little angels singing to us. And so when I'm standing in the woods, I feel drunk, I feel a sort of ecstasy. It's a little bit like a queasiness. It's kind of, you feel queasy, delicious and delightful, dreamy, and it's kind of uncanny. It's a little bit disconcerting when you get into that level of cosmic God consciousness, or the love. You see, when people speak about love coming from human beings, I'm deeply sceptical, because it's all short-lived, isn't it? Or false. But if I was to contemplate love out in the natural environment, I don't have a problem with it. Because I can feel that most wonderful and beautiful and pleasant of feelings. The connection, the eternity. I can feel the eternity of what I am and what it is. I just feel the eternity of it. And that in itself is disconcerting to the ego. We can't comprehend what that means, but we feel it. And when you go into the DMT realm, that's what it tells you. You're it forever and ever and ever. The ego can be afraid of that. But when you're in it, you're not afraid of it, you just are it. It's only when you start to come out of it, when the ego comes back online and it starts grabbing with white knuckles at this reality, this illusion, this delusion. And it's like, oh, you know, thank goodness for my feet on the ground and that I can hold something fast, something solid, a part of this reality which the ego pertains to. The ego doesn't pertain to cosmic consciousness. It's just the illusory operating system for the fiction of the human avatar. So to lose myself, selves, in this natural environment, and this is like 20 feet wide, this little bit of a wood. And so when I go into woods which are vastly more expansive, and I can barely hear, if at all, the cars, well, that's proper in the realm of DMT. And I've often said that if I went out to live feral, if I never heard a car for months on end, if I never saw any remnant of the modern mechanical world, then I would be very, very feral very, very quickly. And I would be a wild man. I mean, I'm almost there, aren't I, to be fair? You see, some people say, oh, you gotta do something with that beard now. You know, what's going on, man? And I'm like, well, I don't get where you're coming from, what's going on. You know, other than it's your indoctrination to what you think is socially acceptable. But this is the natural way a man is. You know, this is the natural way a man's hair would be, living out wild. And whenever you see any of these old Viking movies, very often you've got the actors or extras in those with dreadlocks. Of course, it's just a natural thing. You're not washing and conditioning your hair all the time. You're fucking bathing in a river, you know, as and when you can. And in the winter time, then there's not much of that going on, to be quite frank. And so how many people had this facility of boiling up water and using that precious resource to wash their hair in? It wasn't really happening, people, and so this is the natural way. And you know, the Sikhs, their religion is that they don't cut their hair or beard, because their religion pertains to the natural man. You don't change what God gave you, and so you just let it all do its thing. And I'm letting it all do its thing because it feels absolutely natural, and I'm exceedingly comfortable with it. And I can't imagine myself shaving and cutting my hair ever again. I really can't. I'm just going to let it keep growing and growing and growing. So people, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a walking meditation for half an hour. And so I'm going to stop talking and just immerse myself completely into it. And just observe and be in the dream.